everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Freedom Revamped podcast. I am your host, DeShon Green, and I am joined by the lovely Janelle. Say hello to everyone.
Hey everyone, how are you guys?
So, Janelle, please do us the pleasure of sharing with us a little bit about who you are.
Okay, my name is Janelle Florence. I go to school right now in North Carolina A&T. It's an HBCU, and right now I'm studying liberal studies, concentrating in pre-law. So the plan is to go to law school. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing right now.
Oh, snap. I know who my lawyer is going to be.
I mean, come on, man. I got you.
Awesome. So, Janelle, we just kind of want to start off this podcast by asking you, what do you think freedom means to you?
Freedom to me means being unapologetically you, without fear of judgment, racism, homophobia, whatever that means for you. But being able to just be yourself unapologetically in a society, that's what true freedom means. No matter who you love, where you come from, how rich you are, how poor you are. That's what freedom to me means.
That's a beautiful definition. So, based on your definition, do you consider yourself free?
I think we have this ideal that America is free. In a way, I feel like we all make our own definition of freedom and we all implement it in our own society and in our own life.
Definitely.
Do I think we are 100% free? Not at all. I kind of have made my own perspective of freedom over the years. And I think that once you do that, you kind of either become really content with the idea and what you created as freedom, or
Yeah.
in some cases, it doesn't happen. You're never really content. So I personally, it's like a yes and no question. I mean, it's like a yes and no answer, really. Um, I don't know if I'm free. Are we free?
No, I definitely agree. We kind of talked about that on our first podcast with our CEO and founder, Courtney. We discussed the idea of practicing freedom. So
hmm
that segues me to my next question. What's one way we can go about practicing freedom in the coming week?
Practicing freedom, I think it definitely starts with stuff like what you guys are doing. Like, this is freedom, being able to freely talk about what you think and who you are, and do it without, judgment sometimes. And sometimes there will be judgment at times, for just being vocal about who you are. So I think it starts with you finding out how you want to express yourself, and then going about doing that and doing it no matter who judges you, no matter what backlash you get.
Yeah,
It's an ongoing, process of, practicing being free. I mean, no one's really ever free entirely. So we just have to continue to practice it in any way we can, really. So, yeah.
I agree. That's definitely what my sentiments were as well. I gave my definition, and then I thought about it, and I was like, well, based on my definition, I don't know that I've ever really experienced freedom outside of my spirituality. Like, I feel like I'm the most free when I'm in tune with my spiritual self.
Mm,
Otherwise, it's really hard to physically feel freedom in the world that we live in.
right. There's laws for everything, rules, and some of them are put in place to protect us, so people won't just go freely, killing people, although they do sometimes. But some of these rules can be put to protect us. But they're rules at the end of the day, and they confine us. So it's just we are never really free.
I agree.
Um,
And there's a lot of like, rules that we have written, and then there's some that are
mhm.
unspoken. Like, there's unspoken words to professionalism that restrict us as African Americans. I'm
Right.
in corporate America, and unspoken rules are like what I can do with my hair and how I can dress in
It's
the environment
ridiculous.
because of the way my hair grows out of my head and the way my body is built. So
Mhm.
there's all kinds of things that kind of restrict us. Um, and I definitely would have to agree with you that with that.
I think for sure America has painted like this perfect citizen that they think everyone should be, including race, how your hair looks, your eye color. I think they have painted like this American dream for people and what you are supposed to look like. And most people, they live trying to catch that, to make themselves that. and most fail, and nobody, in my opinion, will ever be that perfect American citizen that everyone, the law, the government, really convinces us that we should be, and for Black people, we are the opposite of white people. Hispanics are the opposite of white people. There are so many cultures and backgrounds. So I don't
Yeah,
think the perfect American person can be found ever truly in someone who's not a straight white male, And that's
I
what I think the
totally
picture. Yeah.
I think there's a very interesting picture of America for me, that's like painted with the blood of my ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
and then that paint is then smeared with the tears that my current generation has, and the frustration and like the ashes of the buildings that have burned. It's just a lot going on right now that's kind of painting a very ugly yet beautiful picture, because I feel like we are forward moving, which is something that we'll talk about later. But just to kind of segue with what we're discussing, I kind of want to know what your thoughts are on the current state of the world right now. We're in a very interesting place, from city to city, from nation to nation, and then worldwide, with the pandemic going on and then a civil war. So, what are your current thoughts on the state of the
I
world?
I think generation, what is it, Z? I think that's what we are. Generation Z is and still will ever be iconic. I think we are one of the most iconic generations because we have done stuff that our ancestors could not even dream about doing. We have done stuff that Dr. King couldn't even fantasize doing, or he would have been shot immediately. Even Malcolm X. So the stuff that we are doing and the people that we have with us on our side when it comes to police brutality and civil unrest, I think is so beautiful. And the situation is not beautiful, but I think when people from all backgrounds can come together for one topic, it just makes it even more beautiful. Like I said, like it's depressing waking up, checking your phone and finding out somebody who looks like you or your brother or your sister or your friend has been killed by the law enforcement, the same people who are supposed to be protecting us. It's depressing, but it gives me hope to know that my generation and so many other people from literally all other countries come together and they see the problem and they are trying to fix the problem and be vocal about it. So I feel, I don't know, my heart is at contradictory because I want it sometimes to be just really depressed and angry. Honestly, I'm angry. I think we all are angry. But
Definitely.
yeah, but I think there's a balance of being really angry and having this depression over your head, and then also seeing people come together, babies, children, everyone, all different ages and backgrounds, and say, hey, we're going to continue to fight for love. We're going to continue to fight for unity. It's a
Definitely.
beautiful thing to watch.
I'd agree. I prefaced our conversation as civil unrest purposely because there's this idea of being tired. We've gone through this for so long. There is a sense of unrest when you're seeing all these things, and then you're trying to sleep at night without having nightmares, and just simply being tired of what we're seeing. Like you said, social media makes it so easy to have all these things accessible that sometimes it's draining. Having to take breaks. Like, I love social media. I'm an artist, and an actress, so I spend a lot of time like on my social media networking and looking for inspiration and things like that. And it sucks that like now it's not what it was just a couple months ago.
Right.
And not that I would want it to go back, because I like where we are now. It's good to see those who are in support of Black lives and who are serious about it. And also the flip side, we're seeing people
Yeah.
on our timelines who were like, I had no idea you felt like this. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
You
Just
kind of talked about it too with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X.
mhm.
To kind of move on to the next question, I wanted to know, like, how can we acknowledge the progress made by our ancestors in every generation since? Like,
I
because they had a specific progress that is different from what we're
mhm.
doing now.
Yeah, I think that people always kind of pose Dr. King and Malcolm X against each other just because they had a different thought process of racism and how to
Mhm.
deal with it. But I think both of these people, both those two, Malcolm X and Dr. King, but also hundreds and thousands of other people who stood up to racism and have done so much that goes, kind of
Mm-hmm.
swept under the rug in a way. These people, all of them have, helped make progress to where we are right now. Of course, we have prominent leaders, Dr. King and Malcolm X, which are so iconic. But we have to acknowledge people from different backgrounds, the females, the
Mm-hmm.
Black female leaders. I mean, wow, they were, Black. I
I
believe
love
there's
Angela Davis. Oh my God.
yes, Angela Davis, Asada Shakur, like the
Yes,
ooh,
ma'am.
yes, like when you tell don't make a Black woman mad. We gonna show you something. Like I
And
promise
we're
you can
nurturing. We're gonna protect our people
exactly. But
at
I
all
think all of those people have helped make progress today. And without them, like we have to give credit where credit is due. Without them, we would probably still be in the fields picking cotton because we had to have some people stand up and say, hey, I may be afraid, I am afraid, but I can't keep letting this happen to my people. Someone's gotta make a change. And without those people, I feel like we would have been set back even more than we have. um
agreed.
yeah, so I think it starts with like educating. I think people want to always quote Dr. King for his nonviolence, but he has so many other ideals. Malcolm X, they want to quote him for being violent, but if you really look at him, this man changed. He started out as a violent, yeah, extremely violent man, but his ideals changed after a while. So I think it starts with educating people on what they believe specifically and making sure we grab those things and implement them into the present right now, because we need every type of education and reform, everything that they've done in the past. We need to implement it now and then add some new things as well so we can really make change.
So I kind of fall right in between. So I'm technically a millennial. And because of that, I think that like each generation has had a different experience with racism or
Mm-hmm.
with our country in general, like the things and the unjust that we see in our day-to-day lives, which will kind of segue me to our next question. But just thinking about how racism disrupts our practice of freedom. When I think about like being a kid and the innocence of not knowing the difference between black and white, and then having my parents explain that to me when I came home after like, so okay, funny story. When I was when I was in preschool, um, I was going to school at a Catholic preschool, so it's pretty mixed as far as the different races and ethnicities that attended. And I was really close friends with this young white girl. And my mom said that one day I came home and told her that the young girl had told me that I was dark white. And it's because she
Oh
said that
wow.
I was having a conversation with the girl, and the girl was like, well, you're not white, you're dark white. Because I didn't know, like, I had not yet figured out what it meant to identify as a race.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was a kid, there's an innocence in youth. You don't really know these things. So I have to come home, and then my mom now has to really instill in, like, help me to understand what it means to be black. And tell me that I was dark white kind of disrupted the way that I performed after that. Now I was like, well, maybe I can't hang with you anymore. Like things that like automatically shift in your psyche when people make reference or different, make you feel different. So that's what my next question was, like, how is what's going on today disrupting your practice of freedom? Like the things that are happening or the microaggressions you might be experiencing, how does that then shift how you perform as a Black woman?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Like you, I had experience. I was like in a private school and, somebody called me a name and I was just like, what's going on here? But, for a long time, because I was really surrounded by white kids, majority for most of my childhood, it wasn't until my teen years that I started hanging around like, majority Black kids and teens. So in my opinion, I received more of colorism than I have racism in my life. And that may be weird for some people, but I've experienced colorism way more than racism. So I haven't had like a direct face with racism where someone actually calls me an N-word to my face or says something really rude to me. But I think it doesn't, it, you don't have to have encountered racism face to face for you to actually go through it. When it comes to colleges, when it comes to jobs, like you brought up, how you have to wear your hair, how you have to look a certain way, like how is my curls, unprofessional. So I think it starts with, like you said, the microaggression. Like it's the little things that are kind of swept under the rug that we are convinced that are normal, that are not, which is so crazy to me. It's like we're brainwashed to thinking, oh yeah, I have to straighten my hair. I have to do that. It's just it's a more professional look. Um,
Exactly.
and so we start convincing ourselves over the years that this is just life, this is normal. When in reality, these are racist acts. These are acts that are based off of racism. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think when it comes to, thank God, like I go to a HBCU, so not in college, I don't really experience that a lot, being around predominantly Black people. But in my high school, I think just in the media sometimes, we can just be perceived as not good enough, or the face of beauty is a white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and over time those things just kind of make a mark in your mind,
They
and
did.
it makes a mark that literally I'm trying to get rid of. Like, even now I'm just like, ooh, maybe if I had these contacts I could look better, or ooh, I just need some inches, I'll be the baddest one in the room. So it's just like, it's the little things over time that has brainwashed me. I think I'm my own enemy at this point. It doesn't take a white man to tell me, oh, I'm not beautiful. I'll say it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it just starts with us being able to figure out the problem and switch our mindset. Because racism isn't so much direct now. It creeps up on you. It comes through your mind, and it just kind of engulfs your soul.
I'd
So
agree. It's almost like for me, like I see a lot of things through metaphor. So it's kind of like having shackles on, not necessarily being chained to anything in particular, but kind of always living within restraint. So it's like,
wow,
yeah,
that's deep.
we can walk around free, but we still can't move our arms all the way. We can't
Hmm.
stretch our legs as far as we want to, but we're moving around free.
Hmm.
We're not chained to anything.
Right.
For me, I found it's ironic, and I'm super emotional, but
It's okay.
I feel like I found my Blackness when I got to college. So I went to a PWI,
Oh
and
wow, that's
I
dope.
had, I had never really experienced um, the microaggressions in the way that I was in college, or um, racism going on around me the way that it was at college, in high school and elementary school. I went to a private school, which was pretty much predominantly Black for the most part. Um, and then going to college, it was a shift. I had spent so much time around Black people, and now I'm with people, and I'm like, I'm the 5%.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is weird. So like
What
just
is
adjusting
this?
to that, and then like, so I kind of want to talk about the compare and contrast really briefly before we wrap up, of like what that experience is for you attending an HBCU and what it was like for me attending a PWI. Because for me, the biggest issue was the microaggressions. I performed in a theater department that was predominantly white. So there was
Mm,
going to auditions and hoping that I was getting a fair chance being a Black girl. So
right.
when I audition, it would be tricky because I'm like, there are shows that I can't perform in
Yeah.
because they aren't catered for Black people. But those were the shows my school was picking. So I wasn't really able to fully experience my college career in theater because they weren't prepared to be totally inclusive.
Hmm.
Um, and then I'm at Kennesaw State, which is here in Georgia, in Cobb County, which is a heavily populated area with people who practice racism. I mean, I don't know how else to
Mm.
put it. There would be gentlemen driving
Wow.
campus with Confederate flags hanging off the back of their truck. And I was just like, I can't believe that this is all happening at the school that I pay good money to attend. Like,
Mm.
there's no protection for people of color here. Like, you
Hmm.
know that you have students whom are Black, whom are Hispanic. We had several foreign exchange students that were coming from all kinds of countries. We had students from Africa, Japan, Britain. We used to get people in the theater department from Ireland. So these people were coming from all over the places. And this is how you're presenting America to them on this campus. It's not good.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
It was definitely a difficult experience for me at Kennesaw. I wouldn't change it because it definitely shaped who I am, and made me very radical about the Black experience. But what was it like for you on the flip side of the coin, like actually being around Black people who are probably, uplifting and you're comfortable?
Yeah. So in high school, it was honestly the biggest transition of my life because in high school I went to a predominantly white school. So I had this idea of what life was, in my opinion, but of what white America was. And so when I got transitioned into an HBCU where there is probably like maybe two or three white people,
Right.
it was a shocker to me. It was a great one. It was a thrill of having people. People have a idea that there is a stereotypical Black person. There isn't any other types of Black people. You have Black people who love art, who love music, who love sports. There are tons. We are so diverse in what we love and how we want to make our appearance. So when I got there, I was one of those people who believed that Black people only kind of acted a certain way, and I think a lot of ideas that I had formed in high school, and I was kind of ignorant, honestly, in high school, because I had convinced. It was just also just the environment that I was in, that this is just what we are. This is what you're supposed to do. And then when I got to my HBCU, I was like, oh my gosh, I had been brainwashed. I did not know Black people could do that. I didn't know that they can do this, like all these businesses, all these
Yeah.
stereotypes that America tries to engulf, embed in our mind. And HBCU like deteriorates all of that. And it was just so refreshing to see my people of color, just be diverse, be dumb. You're your own person. Of course, race has a huge part in who you are and where you come from and where you go. That's always going to be a factor in America. But we are our own people. We have our own personalities, our own likes. And so for me, it really woke me up, because it allowed me to change my view on my own people, because I had been so ignorant for so long. And it made me want to become a better person. Honestly, being at HBCU, you see, you have like the queens, the SGA, you have the
Yeah.
skater, the skater dudes, like you have the, athletes. And I was just like, man, what am I doing? Like, oh my gosh. And of course, like you have the theater kids, which I love. I minor in
Yeah.
theater. Y'all are amazing. Honestly, that just warmed my heart. It's nothing like that. But literally, like, it just made me want to be a better person. And I guess there's this question like, okay, yeah, you go to school, with predominantly Black people for what, 4 years, and then what happens after that? You go back into white America, you don't have any knowledge, you're not going to know how to act around white people. And that is totally not true, because we are, like, you guys have like foreign exchange students, we have foreign exchange students. They make sure that we continue to make sure that we are knowledgeable about the world and other people. But I think for just being at an HBCU, you're always comfortable because there's never going to be a time where, oh, you see somebody, a group of white kids, they're standing at you, laughing at you, picking on you. It's never going to be that moment. Of course, not every Black person is, perfect and has great personalities. There's always going to be some
Part
people
of
like that.
being human, though.
Yeah, that's part of being human, man. You're gonna encounter, bad people all the time. But I will say, like, I always felt safe there, and it was one of the amazing things that I've experienced, just being in HBCU and loving my Black and realizing that there is no way to define Black because it's so infinite. There's so
Yeah.
many things. So
So,
we are so talented, man. Like,
so complex.
it made me appreciate us even more. Like, wow, like it was just an amazing experience. But I think definitely a lot of people try to like, I know a lot of people who are feel so strong about the HBCU. They're like, why do Black people even go to PWIs? I'm just like, look, I respect the Black people who go to PWIs because I know how hard it is being the minority, at a school. That is hard, It's
You
not
kind of not
fun.
know what you're stepping into, because
Yeah.
going from a high school into a university is two completely different experiences. There's
Mm-hmm.
something so microscopic about a high school and something so macro about a university.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a community within it. Like, there was definitely a small Black community that we kind of ran much of the student organizations, to be honest, at Kennesaw. The Kennesaw Activities Board was ran by predominantly Black students. Every year I had been there, it was ran by Black students. We had the African American Student Alliance that I had the pleasure of being the vice president of, and working with
Mm-hmm.
some friends that are still dear to me today. So these are all experiences that I found within that. I wanted to go to Howard. Spoiler alert,
Hate you.
I thought I was going to be a bison. I went and auditioned and everything. Didn't end up financially being able to support the idea. So that was like something I was like, well, great. I can say I got in, but I can't go.
Mm-hmm.
But that was one of those things that, like, I always wonder, what would it have been like? Would my life have been different had I gone? But I feel like God kind of met me where I was. And he said, you're here
For
to
sure.
PWI. I'm going to show you your Blackness here. And he did. And in a way that, like, yeah, it left me with a couple of bruises and scars, but ones that I look at and, like, I smile, because I'm like, that's all a part of my journey. That's all a part of who I am. And I also, on the other hand, heavily appreciate HBCUs. I grew up in the church, and my church was ran by a lot of people who went to school in the AUC here in Atlanta. So thinking about that, like, you have so many people who went to Spelman and Morehouse who pour into the community and make sure that we know who we are, and that create forums and conversations and panels where we can discuss our history, especially in the world where it's so lost and we have lost touch of it. So I definitely appreciate the efforts of HBCUs, and I would love to see them continue to grow. I would love to see different cultures appreciate them. Obviously, there's a sentiment of it, of like wanting to keep it. I always wonder what people's thoughts were if it like ever started to get to a place where it wasn't just all Black people there. But I'm like, guys, after a
Yo,
while, people are gonna like
they had that idea.
kind of get in there and just see
Mm-hmm.
what our experience is like. Obviously, it's going to shift, but like you mentioned, you do have a couple of white students that go to your school. So knowing that they are there, like, kind of wanting to know what that side of the coin feels for them. Obviously, there's a different sentiment of feeling different or like an outsider there, because they then get to go back to their lives. But like,
Right.
what that must feel like for them. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
conversation on both sides.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Honestly, I just appreciate any Black person who's getting their education, doing something that they love. I think it's just, I remember they used to have this saying, if you want to hide something from a Black person, put it in a book.
In the book, yeah.
So education is key, man. So whether you go to a PWI, HBCU, it all adds to your journey in life, like you were saying, because there's going to be some challenges in HBCU, same as PWIs. There are challenges everywhere, but as Black people, I think we prevail every time.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how we do, but we do.
Tenacity and a perseverance within Black people that like has gotten us this far. And I'm so blessed to kind of see history unfold in front of me. Obviously, I was telling my boyfriend the other day that it's kind of a blessing to be a part of this and to experience change. But then it's also like, okay, so here in Atlanta, we just had another Black man shot. So then it's also like, okay, I felt like we were kind of on an upward hill, but then we're kind of getting knocked back down. And obviously that doesn't take away from all the things that have positively changed since George Floyd's death. But it's just like, at the end of the day, there's so much more to be done, and we need allies to assist us with that, because they operate the system, and that's the best way I can get people to understand. Like, I know we want to fix it ourselves, but unless we create our own,
we need them.
Unless we create our own society and we live in our own, home.
Make our Wakanda or something, but
You know,
yeah.
another Wakanda. We have to break down the system. The system has to be dismantled, and that calls for allies. They're the ones that have access to it. They have to assist us in dismantling it.
Yeah. I think it's necessary what's going on. Do I like it? I hate it, honestly. I don't want this stuff to be happening, but it's necessary because it brings awareness every time someone is killed through police brutality. I think it shakes people up again. They're like, oh, okay, it's still happening. Oh, it didn't die down. Because I think at one point it started dying down this week after George Floyd was buried and they got convicted. And I was just like, I don't like where this is going. Like I feel like people are falling back asleep. And then, of course I didn't want another person to die. But that's when another, way of making sure we keep the movement going is doing things like this, talking about it, starting organizations, starting community projects. That allows people to start seeing it, other than social media and, someone having to die for you to wake up and realize racism is real. It starts with us creating stuff to keep the momentum going and make sure we shove it in their face and make them listen to us. So,
Agreed. I think it's also important to find your voice in whatever your purpose is. So for me, I'm an artist. So creating art that speaks to what's going on, making sure that even if it's not necessarily something about civil injustice, that it's inclusive of it's something that I'm practicing diversity in. I want women in there. I want, if I'm talking about a specific experience, I need to have those people in there to voice their experience. I don't want to assume about a certain experience because I think that's what happens a lot in Hollywood. They tell our stories, but they don't tell them right. And then we're seeing a version of ourselves that is not familiar. So I think it's very important that we kind of stay in our lanes and make sure that we figure it out. Like for you, I guess this will be my closing question for you. How do you think that you can practice activism through your profession?
So right now, like I said, I'm studying to be an attorney, but also like you, I love acting. I love film. I'm an artist. I love to create stuff. So when it comes to the legal side of it, I'm trying to be the person when stuff like this happens that I can go in and make sure this is dealt with right and that it's not swept under the rug and that there isn't no wrong convention. I want to be the person who can be somebody's person, when they're going through, when someone's, family has been, stripped apart. I want to be that person where they can come and I can say, hey, I'm going to help you. I'm going to fight with you, and he's going to get justice or she's going to get justice. So then, right now, because that's going to be a while from now where I can legally practice it, but making, community projects, talking about it. I just want to create stuff, whether that's with, acting, because I think that film has such a huge impact on society. So you have people like Ava DuVernay that help bring racism to people's screens and people's homes. So they have no choice but to watch, So I think it's beautiful when Black directors can use their film and their artistry for something good and productive, like their people and their Blackness. So yes, in any way I can, whether, like I said, it's through art or it's through, community projects, I'm going to try to do everything I can because I know I will want somebody else to do the same for me,
I agree. I think my biggest thing is trying to lay a firm foundation for the next generation. So you talk about how forward moving our generation is, but like making sure that we're laying something for them to stand on too when they move. Because it's going to be an ongoing fight until we see some sort of justice, whatever that might look like, if we get to see it in our lifetime. But just making sure that we're giving them a strong back to stand on, or like I said, a foundation to stand on. So this has been a wonderful conversation, Janelle.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. This was so fun, man.
I love it. So before we go, I just kind of want you to share with everyone how they can reach you or how they can follow what you're doing. So that could be social media, website, whatever you have. Share with that.
Okay, so yeah, my Instagram is Janelle Florence, JANELLEFLORENCE. I have a Twitter, don't remember the name, but if you just follow my Instagram, I'm pretty sure I'll have something with all my other social media handles. And that's the only page I have right now that I can, speak out about certain things. But from there, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be starting forming another group, a organization, and I'm even thinking about starting a book club because we want to read. We want people to be educated. So what other way, read, and education. So yeah, you guys can follow me there. And thank you so much for having me on here, man. It's been great.
No problem. Thank you for sharing the conversation. So this concludes our episode on civil unrest. And as our CEO and founder, Courtney says, make sure you are always practicing freedom.